much, and thanks to everyone for taking the time to be here today. I really enjoy getting to do these webcasts about all kinds of Office documents, but I've got to admit that I just love working in PowerPoint. I am a die-hard PowerPoint geek or fan, I'm not sure which, maybe both. And I love working with Office Art presentation graphics as well. So I've really been looking forward to today's session. If you joined me for my Word webcast last month, you might recall that I talked about the best kept secret for Microsoft Word, which is that the less work you do, the better your documents will be. Well, it happens that statement is just as true for PowerPoint and your presentations. Now, in my experience, when people get frustrated with PowerPoint, it's because they think of it as a graphics program. Well, you know what? It's not a graphics program, and it doesn't want to be. PowerPoint is presentation software, so it's all about precision and efficiency. But you know what else? Here's the thing. When you use the tools that enable you to work precisely and efficiently with PowerPoint, you can end up with really creative, beautiful, impressive presentations with a lot less work than you might expect. Now, before we jump into all that and what that means, I want to give you a brief idea of what to expect today. Like my books, this webcast is not really intended for beginners, and to that end I'm going to be making some assumptions about your experience with PowerPoint during this session, and you can get an idea about that from the examples on this slide. But if any of these items aren't familiar to you, please don't be concerned. Please do stay. If you're quite new to creating PowerPoint presentations or working with PowerPoint content, it's likely it's going to feel like I'm going pretty fast. But keep in mind that, as Yaz mentioned, you can ask questions. Also, that this webcast is being recorded, so you'll be able to come back to it if you'd like to fast forward or rewind and review anything of interest that you might miss. Well, in fact, even though I planned this session for users with some experience, it would help me to be able to deliver a more useful session for you today, regardless of what your level is, if I can take just a minute or two of your time to learn a bit about your Office experience. So I'm going to ask you to reply to just a couple of quick anonymous polls, and we'll get started with those right now. All you need to do is click on your screen to answer. So the first poll is, which version of Microsoft Office do you primarily use right now? And hoping there aren't too many people who don't use Office that are in your reply today, because probably not a lot to get out of a PowerPoint webcast if you're not using the software. But let's see. Are you using Office 2010, which this webcast is about? Also, if you are Mac users and you're using Office for Mac 2011, a lot of what we're going to cover is applicable to you as well. So go ahead and select your answer, and we'll give everybody just a minute or two to do so. Okay, super. It looks like we've got a lot of Office 2010 users. And for Office 2007 users, what's cool, there's an awful lot that changed, as you probably know, in PowerPoint 2007. So we're going to be talking about that today. A lot of what we're going to be talking about was new in 2007 as opposed to 2010. And see some Office for Mac 2011 users as well. That's great. If you guys work on an earlier version on either platform, still hopefully get some stuff out of today's session that can help you either moving forward or just in general. Let's take one more quick poll. Want to find out about your Office experience, more specifically your PowerPoint experience, or your skill level with PowerPoint, how much you work with it. Just please pick the one that's closest to what you think is applicable for you. And you maybe, if you're a beginner or basic user, you may have been, maybe you've been using PowerPoint for years, but you really just only use super basics. That applies there too. And just wherever you think fits. Remember, these are totally anonymous. And we'll just give everybody a minute to do that. Okay. Thanks for doing that, everybody. It looks like we've got people across a wide range of experience levels, and I'm very glad that we have 0% of people who are just here because you didn't have anything better to do today. That bodes well for the rest of the session. And super, it looks like we've got a mix of folks all levels and a lot of folks who to the intermediate category, and that is just about perfect. So let's go ahead with that and get started. Today's session, of course, is focused on PowerPoint 2010. So if you use PowerPoint 2010, or for the Mac users here, if you're using PowerPoint for Mac 2011, you've got a lot of cool new functionality at your disposal. But as you just mentioned, it was the previous version, 2007 for Windows, 2008 for Mac, when some essential underlying concepts, really major underlying concepts, changed for PowerPoint. And because of the combination here, well, today's PowerPoint is just tremendously more flexible and more powerful than it used to be, and just exponentially so. So, as previously mentioned, we're talking about presentation software, using the tools that enable you to work precisely and efficiently. But if that sounds too pragmatic to you, well, the reality is that using the best tools for the task in PowerPoint enables you to be more creative. It helps ensure that your results will be more professional, better looking, and most importantly, are going to help convey your important information effectively, because that's what presentation is about, right? Not about graphic design. We like to have beautiful document design, but any kind of document design, whether it's for a paper document, an electronic document, or a presentation that you're delivering, is about conveying your important information. So that's what we're about today. And if you look at the list of features on this agenda, it's going to look like a pretty ambitious plan for one demo. I have no intention of trying to teach you all of these features, obviously, in one demo. What I plan to do today is to provide one or more key concepts and tips trying to help you work more easily and create better presentations. So for themes, masters, and layouts, well, we're going to be looking at the relationship between those elements and some tips to help you create resilient presentations that behave as you expect and are easy to edit and easy to share. For on-slide content, we're just going to make a brief stop there. I want to show you a little bit about the relationship between masters, layouts, and slides, and particularly how themes can help with a wide range of slide content types to help you easily coordinate everything in your presentation, or actually effortlessly or even automatically coordinate everything. For office art, one of my very favorite subjects, well, we'll talk briefly about a topic I don't seem to be able to do a webcast without, and that would be smart art, a big favorite of mine. And we're going to look, though, we're going to spend most of our office art time talking about some brilliant tools for working with shapes that are new or improved in PowerPoint 2010, and in some cases, PowerPoint for Mac 2011 as well. For multimedia, I'm going to talk about tips for working with embedded video, which of course is new in both PowerPoint 2010 and PowerPoint for Mac 2011, and managing the media in your documents, where PowerPoint 2010 has a number of exclusive tools. Finally, for animations and transitions, well, we're just going to be looking at this briefly and take a look at a couple of new features in PowerPoint 2010 that make it easier than ever to literally choreograph your slides and use animation not as just bells and whistles, but as a powerful tool to help you tell your story. Okay. But we actually need to open PowerPoint to do any of this stuff. So, as you might have guessed, it would be time for the demo. Okay, it's going to take me just a moment to get into the demo. And as I do that, folks, I just want to mention a couple of things about screen share. Now, it's common for video or audio to lag with screen sharing software, as you may know, and it's nearly impossible for me to know if that's happening for you because it's going to vary based on each person's internet connection, system resources, etc. So if it feels like I'm jumping around on screen, well, I promise I'm not going to do that to you. But keep in mind that you can ask questions if you miss something, and you can return to the recorded version of the session to review anything that you miss. Just a reminder, no matter when you ask your question, I'm going to be answering questions at the end of the session. And there isn't always time to take all questions live, but all questions will get answered. If I don't answer your question during the session, I'll send you an answer by email. I'm also going to provide you with an address where you can go to ask me questions that arise after the session's over. And actually, just for reference, if you want to make note of that now, where you can send me questions later, it is my very neglected blog, and that is arroway.net, AROUET.net. And with that, I'm going to jump in. The only other thing that I want to mention is that my new book, Documents, Presentations, and Workbooks, which is for Office 2010 and Office 2011. Everything we're looking at today, as in all the webcasts in this series, is covered in the book and with a great deal more detail. So for those of you who do have the book, I may refer you there for more information on some of the tips we'll talk about. And if you don't and you need other additional resources, there is a lot of resource online that I can help you with. So ask if you want more resources on anything that I talk about, please. It's going to take me just a moment to set up the screen share. Folks, I should have been doing that while talking to you, but I was focusing on talking to you. So bear with me just a second.
Stephanie, while you're setting up that screen share, we do see a little bit of a trend developing in our group chat, and folks are wondering, is it worth upgrading to 2011? Could you maybe share your thoughts on that?
For Office for Mac 2011, so Office for Mac users? Absolutely. For Office for Mac users, no question about it. I have to tell you the difference between Office 2008 for Mac and Office for Mac 2011 is enormous. The compatibility with Office 2010, with WinOffice for all, if you work with people cross-platform, is tremendously better. The performance is tremendously improved. I really love the version, really love the version. I do Outlook for Mac, of course, is ground up. You're not going to expect Outlook for Mac to be the same as Outlook for Windows, but personally, I find it much more comfortable and much more familiar since I am an Outlook user than Entourage was, so it's definitely along the same lines. PowerPoint has most of the same features as PowerPoint 2010 that we're going to talk about. I will let you know when something is exclusive to PowerPoint 2010. But I think performance across the board. If you guys want to learn more specifically about PowerPoint for Mac, or sorry, Office for Mac 2011, there are also product guides that go into new features and performance issues and give you a lot of specifics around that, and I can point you guys to that with a link. So let me know if you'd like some more information along those lines. Hopefully that will help out. And if that doesn't answer, if you had specific questions, feel free to ask those too. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with, as you see here, my, at the moment, incredibly boring slides. Okay, so we're going to start off talking about themes, masters, and layouts and the relationships between them. So themes, as you probably know, if you're using Office 2007 or 2008 for Mac or later, right, if you're using the current versions as well, themes in PowerPoint are the evolution of PowerPoint design templates, right? But themes also work across Office. So in Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, themes provide colors, fonts, and graphic formatting effects that you can apply to the entire document with just a click. So they help you to implement your visual brand identity. Whether you're working in a big company where you need everyone to be using the same brand identity, right, the same branding, and it makes it so much easier to implement that, or whether you are a one-person company, an independent contractor, or even a student, and you're developing your own personal brand, you can make all of your content look consistent pretty effortlessly. So you may want to use one of the many built-in themes, right? We're going to talk a little bit about those here. You may want to create your own custom theme. I have one saved here. And you can create your own custom theme elements as well, like colors, fonts. And for those of you who are a little bit more adventurous, we'll talk about this briefly, you can create your own custom theme effects as well. So that is a theme across Office. But in PowerPoint, as the evolution of PowerPoint design templates, the theme also includes the slide master and all of the slide layouts, which we'll talk about. Very important, huge change, right, in Office 2007 and Office for Mac 2008 is the ability to customize and create your own slide layouts to attach to the master. And all of them, the master and all of its layouts, are stored within the theme. And then there's the slightly gray area of the slide background styles gallery. Well, it would seem as though if there's slide background styles that that's a PowerPoint exclusive feature. But actually, both both Word and Excel. And for Word, this is new to 2010, but both Word and Excel, as well as you can see, PowerPoint here. At the bottom of the Shape Gallery, the Shape Styles Gallery, excuse me, on the Drawing Tools Format tab, you see Other Theme Fills. And when you point to that, you get the exact same options that are in the Background Styles Gallery. So in any of the programs, you can actually apply one of the slide background styles from your theme to a shape. So for example, you might want to use that for a cover page in a Word report or proposal. So it makes it much easier to coordinate all aspects of your theme across programs. So again, just you're going to get that on the Drawing Tools Format tab under Shape Styles. That is actually Other Theme Fills. That is an exclusive Office 2010 feature. So you're not going to find that in Office for Mac 2011, but if you were to, for example, use that in Word 2010 and share with a user of Office for Mac 2011, it is supported because it's just part of the theme. So they would still see the content that you create. Okay, so that's all of the elements. So what does that mean? So what's going to happen when I then apply a different theme? And of course I have live preview. Keep in mind that effects that you're going to see here in a lot of screen sharing environments, some of these theme effects, they just don't look great, right? Some of the, and it's not just about Office theme effects, but gradients don't always look great, right? Or 3D formatting, bevel formatting. A lot of things may not look as clean. And that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're presenting. Now, I'm going to show you themes that may not look good because we're talking about themes where I'm not giving you a presentation for the purpose of how those slides are going to look. But when you are creating a presentation, one really important thing to think about is how you're delivering it. And it's a good idea if you are using something like a screen share or a web delivery program that you test it out and see how the effects and formatting that you use appear in that environment. So, but when I apply another theme, right, that theme is going to change my fonts, it's going to change my colors, it's going to change graphic formatting effects. You can see how the effects that have been applied here are different in this graphic, which happens to be a SmartArt graphic, right, depending on what theme I apply. And that's going to be the case whether it is a built-in theme or a custom theme. And what's really important to keep in mind here also is that whatever themes, even if I save a theme in PowerPoint, that theme automatically appears when I save a theme, Themes Gallery, Save Current Theme, so that would save your current slide master, collection of layouts, and whatever you've selected in the Colors, Fonts, and Effects Gallery, all together, whatever is currently showing in your Background Styles Gallery, all together as your own custom theme. Save Current Theme. It's going to appear under Custom Themes in the gallery. It's also automatically going to appear in the other programs that support themes. And just a quick note about that. I always talk about Word, PowerPoint, and Excel for themes, and that's the primary place where that's important, right? But it is important to know that that's not all Outlook items, right? Outlook people are saying, hey, wait a minute, we have themes too, and you never talk about that. Well, Outlook, when you're in like an Outlook email, you're actually using Word functionality. So I don't often separate those things, but they are separate, in fact. So you do have access to themes in Outlook items and theme colors and fonts in several items in an Access database, such as Forms as well. So, but in Visio and Publisher, you have things called themes that are not the same. Even in some cases, they have the same names or may look similar. They're not the same. So if you customize a theme, if you create your own custom theme in Word, PowerPoint, or Excel, your changes are not going to populate. It's a very separate feature in Visio and Publisher, just to keep in mind. Okay, so the theme contains the master and the layout. And okay. Bear with me, folks, just one second. Sorry, slight technical glitch. It's just going to take me a second. Okay, thanks very much. So even though we've got this great new themes functionality, works across programs, very exciting, much more dynamic, includes a lot more elements, right? Because you had your slide designs, your design templates in versions earlier than 2007 and 2008 for Mac, and that included the master. Of course, it included the layouts. They weren't customizable, but they came along with the master. And it included your color schemes, right? And it included whatever fonts you'd applied to the master. With themes, it becomes much more dynamic and much more powerful. So I can, for example, select different fonts, right, that will change across the across the presentation. I can select a different color scheme, and it will change across the presentation much like you could in earlier versions. But then I have theme effects that will affect all of the Office Art graphics, Smart Art charts, and shapes that I have formatted. That when you create these, and say that I've formatted using theme-aware formatting, but what's really more accurate there, when I create a Smart Art graphic or an Excel chart in PowerPoint, in Word, PowerPoint, or Excel now, or insert shapes, their formatting is theme-aware by default, so you'd actually have to apply. You'd either be importing from an old presentation, a legacy presentation, or have applied formatting that's not theme-aware in order for them not to update, right, when I apply a different set. So a lot more options that will work a lot more dynamically. Background styles that are going to automatically swap light and dark colors, for example, and make it much easier to work with slides that have different formatting without having multiple masters in the same presentation. Customizable layouts, slide background gallery are going to do that for you. Let's go to the Slide Master, though, and traditional way to get there, View, Slide Master, or you can use the shortcuts. View shortcuts, hold the Shift key, and click on Slide Master. Okay, so first things first, notice this. If you're going to edit the master in PowerPoint for Windows, PowerPoint 2007 or 2010, notice right now what's in front of me looks like the Slide Master, but it's not. It's the title and content layout. It would be whatever layout was attached to my active slide. Mac users, you don't have the same problem. You will see the Slide Master is what's in front of you when you open that layer. Windows users, before you start customizing, click on that big thumbnail up on the left. If you do not see the thumbnails, if they're not there, right, if the thumbnails are not there, what you want to do is just in your normal view, you're going to open the slide pane, or if it's not open at all, just click the normal view shortcut on the status bar. That's going to restore your slide pane, and then when you go back into the Slide Master, it will be there. You can make that larger or smaller as needed. So you're going to go to the master. And this is really important. Because you can customize layouts now, remember to always go to the master first, because as soon as you customize something on a layout, it becomes disconnected from the master. For example, if I were to accidentally be on the title and content layout, and I do this all the time, by the way, because forget that you're not looking at the master when you open that layer. If I change the bullet formatting, well, I've only changed it for that layout. So then if I change it on the master, it's separate. It's not going to update on my title and content layout anymore because I've told PowerPoint not to. I've made that formatting different. So if you accidentally, like if I accidentally change the bullet formatting here, go up to the Quick Access toolbar or use Control-Z if you're a shortcut person and undo those changes. Go to the master and apply them there. If you don't want to disconnect your layouts, you're going to cause a lot more work for yourself and some inconsistency down the line. Remember that the master is still the place to go for everything that you want to apply to all or most layouts and to all or most slides. So it's the place to put a logo if you want it on every slide. It is a place to set up the master layout, right, for where you want the main content pieces to be, how much of the slide you want used for them, how you want your footer information, your date information, your slide numbers to appear, any background graphics that you want to appear on all layouts, or most even, right? Remember that on individual layouts, Slide Master tab, you can hide background graphics, such as you do by default here in some, well, we'll do in most, shouldn't say by default, but you'll see that by default in most themes, because that's pretty common for a title slide layout. Also keep in mind when you're customizing layouts, if I add a custom layout, you want to keep in mind the order. The order that you see layouts below the Slide Master is the same order that they appear in the gallery, but what's really important is Layouts 1 and Layout 2. By default, built-in title slide layout, built-in title and content layout. If I insert another slide layout here, that's going to be the second layout in order. Right? I can rename it. Remember, you can do an awful lot as well on the right click. So I can rename it. I can, as you see, you can duplicate layouts or add additional slide masters as well if you need them. If if I add that layout here, the important thing for this number 2 position, when you create a new presentation, anytime you create a new presentation, right, you get a title slide by default. And then when you add your second slide, you get a title and content slide by default, right? Not exactly. You get a title slide layout by default if it is the first layout in your underneath your master, and you get the title and content if it is the second layout in your master. Now, of course, that doesn't continue through the presentation. That's just for the first 2 slides. So, for example, if you're going to offer 4 different custom title slides in your custom theme, you probably want to put them after the title and content or whatever your main content layout is going to be, so that you don't end up with undesired results when a user starts a new presentation and adds a new slide and can't figure out why they can't get away from title slides. Right? So keep that in mind, and we'll go ahead and get rid of that. The other thing to remember is if you do accidentally disconnect a layout, elements of a layout from a master, right? You've done a bunch of things. Say you customized your title and content layout, did a whole bunch of things. You thought you wanted to. You didn't think you were on the master. You did this on purpose. But then it just gets stuck, and you've made so many changes, and you've got to now backtrack, but now you wish it was still connected to the master. And when you're creating content, particular content for others to use or content that you're going to reuse a lot, that can happen quite a lot. Well, it's really easy to get it back. What you want to do is make sure that this layout's not attached to any slides. You can even just temporarily apply a different layout to any slides that's attached. You delete that layout, and then you can either add the master in the same presentation or create a new blank presentation, copy a clean, brand new, plain old plain instance of it, and here we're going to just, I've got this layout applied to a bunch of slides here, so let's just go to title only for a second, so it's not applied to any, because otherwise it's not going to let me delete it, right? It's used by no slides. I can delete it, and then I can just paste into position that brand new one, which is going to take on the slide master defaults for the layout I've pasted, right? This works with built-in layouts, and it's going to then be reconnected to the master, and I can customize what I really need from here, right? So, all right. And lots of undo and redo there to get back to where we were. Okay. The other thing that I want to really caution you about when you're creating presentations, if you're like me, and I think like most people who use PowerPoint a lot before Office 2007 or 2008 for Mac, so before we had customizable layouts, almost every slide was either title-only layout or blank layout because you needed flexibility you didn't have, right? That's not the case anymore. Please don't do that. Your slides will be inconsistent, but more importantly, you will do so much work for inferior results. Use layouts, but use them where it makes sense to do so. So, for example, if you're a Word user, you probably use styles if you create documents quite a bit. Well, styles in Word, or frankly wherever there are styles, right? Styles are about saving you time and helping things be more consistent, right? But if you needed one word with a certain type of formatting in one instance and would never use it again, you wouldn't create a style for that. That would be doing extra work for no reason. Think about layouts the same way. If you need a one-off slide that you're never going to use again differently, don't go to the trouble of creating a layout for it. But if you may need that same layout for different slides, or even if, again, in a different presentation later, then you will save time by creating that layout and using placeholders for the content. One of the biggest benefits of using layouts and placeholders is that if things do get messed up on the slide, you can just click that reset button and get your layout back, put it all back together, because it's set up to match your presentation. So there's big benefits to working with the content that's provided. Okay, so lots more to talk about on this subject, but the time is going fast, so let's move on to the next. Well, as I said, I'm going to just briefly talk a little bit about on-slide content. And the one thing that I really want to talk about with on-slide content is just connecting that to themes, masters, and layouts. If your presentation, right, if your presentation is set up properly, if you're making use of that master and those layouts, right, then, and your theme, most importantly, for this purpose, right, the nicest thing is that whatever you add to those slides is going to automatically coordinate with your content, and it's so easy to make it coordinate with your theme. So for text, for example, right, you set up that text on the master. Remember, even though you only see 5 levels of text in preview, you have up to 9 if you're giving an on-screen presentation. Really hope you're not using 9 levels, but still, you've got them if you need them, right? If you've set that up, you've got if your text is going to take on fonts and colors from your theme, right, by default, and diagrams like SmartArt diagrams, charts like the Excel charts that are now native in PowerPoint and have been for the last 2 versions, right? Or well, 2 versions, including the previous, so since 2007 and 2008. And if you have, the only exception to that, and this is, I know, so uncommon, but if you happen to have PowerPoint, a standalone copy of PowerPoint rather than a copy of Office, if you don't have Excel installed on your system, then you're not going to get Excel charts when you create a chart. But if Excel is installed on your system, then of course you are. So, for diagrams, for charts, those are Office Art graphics, right? As well as for shapes, you've got galleries that automatically coordinate not just your fonts and colors, but also your graphic effects. So for example, when I go to the SmartArt gallery, the SmartArt Styles gallery, I've got this category Best Match for Document. And Best Match for Document are the styles that coordinate with the effects saved in the theme. So if I apply intense effects, those are the intense effects from the theme. If you are familiar with themes, you may know that that's not a one-to-one relationship. If you do have my book, Chapter 5 gives you a really in-depth introduction to themes, the different galleries, and how they're created, what theme elements are included, or what theme effect elements are included in each. So you can apply different theme effects. Incidentally, the other options are just a variety. Those don't change. So the 3D options do not change for effects based on your theme, but the fills will change based on your theme, depending on what your theme is, and of course your colors here. And I didn't create a slide for a table, if I insert a table in PowerPoint, you've got Best Match for Document again, and these coordinate with your theme effects. Theme effect fills, not just with fonts and colors. So under Best Match for Document, you have coordination with theme effects as well as fonts and colors, and the other styles you have coordination with theme fonts and colors. Charts, the same thing, right? In my charts, I've got chart styles that coordinate with the theme. By the way, if you customize a chart, and then you want to change the style, for example, if I were to apply a chart style and then maybe I'm going to change the font size and get rid of limits of layout, right, whatever else I might want to do. Well, if I apply another style, right, notice that I lose the font. I lose the font size, and I may lose other aspects as well. If you don't want to lose your customizations, right-click the gallery entry, apply and maintain formatting. Right-click when it comes to Office Art galleries, a number of galleries actually across Office 2010 in particular. Right-click is going to give you options in a lot of cases you don't get elsewhere, so just keep that in mind. So for a number of different kinds of content, you've got galleries that just automatically coordinate with your theme. So you can do your own thing. You can do one-offs. You can go to that Format tab, and you can format individual shapes if you want to, individual elements. You can do custom formatting. Of course you can. But you can coordinate with all of your content with just a couple of clicks. And since you can customize your own themes, you can save a lot of time that way. Okay, the one other element about on-slide content I want to touch on is working with pictures. So if I insert a picture, and use these little penguin guys. Okay, so if I insert a picture, now it used to be in versions earlier than 2010 and Mac 2011, if I needed to crop that image or zoom in on a piece of that image, I couldn't do that within the layout, right? I needed to crop and then reposition, and I'd lose all my positioning and layout if I had to reset the slide. Well, my favorite thing, there's a ton of advanced picture tools in both the current Windows and Mac versions of Office that are new and improved, really cool features, great effects, some really lovely picture editing tools. But my very favorite thing is the crop tool. So you can now see the entire image in shadow while you crop, and what's really great about that is, so not only I could crop the image like that, and that's going to change my layout, right? But what I really want on the PowerPoint slide is to get the right piece of that image showing within my layout. Well, I can move my image without messing with my layout, right? I can zoom in. Maybe I just really like this little guy on the left, and I want to focus primarily on him. And that took about a second, and my layout is completely intact. The one thing to keep in mind is your custom crop will be lost if you click Reset. But that's still an awful lot less work than having to reposition and reset everything if you needed to reset the layout for some other reason. So very cool there with the cropping tool. And I'm going to backtrack. I'm not going to go into it. If you have the book, it is covered in the first PowerPoint chapter. One thing I want to mention to you, but if you have questions about this, need more specific information, please ask me. One thing I had meant to talk about when we were talking about themes, masters, layouts, was a really important and really common pain point particularly when migrating from versions earlier than 2007 or 2008, but when copying slides in from other presentations. It's an old, very common practice to use keep source formatting, right, which currently appears in all SmartTag at the corner of the screen, the option to keep source formatting. Please don't do it. If you create content for others to use, tell your users not to do it. It is responsible for such a large amount of problems and inconsistency in presentations. It seems like the fast way, right, to get your content looking right, especially if you had a deck that looked the same or a template that looked the same in an earlier version but was actually a different template, right, if you have a new template for 2007 or 2010 or the equivalent Mac versions. The 2003 or earlier or 2004 or earlier template may look the same essentially. Keep source formatting might look like it's matched, but you have brought over the master and the entire set of layouts. Not only will it not look quite exactly the same, it is not connected to your main master, and every time you click Keep Source Formatting, you add another master and another set of layouts. So huge file sizes, even corruption when it gets out of control. Keep that in mind. If you have questions or you've had pain points around that, please do ask, and I'll make sure you get resources if you need them. Okay. On track here. Sorry for that little aside. I did not want to forget. I almost forgot to mention that. But let's get back on track here, and we're going to talk about Office Art. So talking about Office Art, as I mentioned, I want to talk very briefly about SmartArt. Well, I love SmartArt, but there is a reason that I love SmartArt. You've got about 130 in Office 2010 and 2011 built-in SmartArt layouts across a wide variety of diagram types. And the thing that's really cool, this isn't like that old, really lame diagram and org chart tool that was horribly frustrating and limited and never looked particularly good. This tool gives you a huge array of really very real-world diagrams that you literally create by typing a bulleted list. So if I insert this layout, notice I've got my text pane here. As I add text, it fills in the diagram. It fills in the shapes. I can edit in the shapes if I want to. Press Enter to add a new shape. Tab to demote a shape. Tab to promote a shape. And obviously works different in different layouts. I'm going to backtrack here a little bit to go back to my placeholders just for demo purposes. I can change to a different layout and retain all of the information that I've added. You get a bunch. You see those that are related or similar to the type of diagram that you're using in the gallery. You can click More Layouts to access all of them. The thing about SmartArt that is so great is it saves time and it really creates professional looking content. And a couple of clicks and it goes with my theme beautifully. Right, so a lot less work. Now, in 2010 and 2011, you can take SmartArt further, and actually in Service Pack 2 of PowerPoint 2010, this was actually added. But let's say you're working with SmartArt and then you reach a point where it just doesn't do what you need anymore. You need to add something that you can't because you are working within a structure that is an outline essentially presented as a graphic. On the SmartArt Tools Design tab, Convert to Shapes. Once I convert to shapes, basically it's done a bunch of the work for me, but now I've just got shapes I can work with. Looks beautiful. Now I can add to it without having had to start with shapes and draw every single solitary one of them in a line and set them up. Okay, so keep that in mind for SmartArt. Also keep in mind if you need custom layouts, right? You can customize things within the graphic itself, right? For example, I can go ahead and change shapes just like I can on shapes. But then if I add another shape, it's going to go back to what's set up in the layout. If you need custom layouts, whether it's just an organization chart with different shapes than what you see in the built-in options, or you need a totally custom type of diagram, if you know an Office Open XML developer, they can create them. It is a programming task, but SmartArt is completely extensible. You have to. It is done in the XML, but you can actually create completely custom SmartArt layouts. If you're interested in that, I wrote an article for a white paper for MSDN. It's available free online, so let me know about that, and I'll get you the link if you want to learn more about that. Okay. The other thing in Office Art that I really want to talk about here is working with shapes. A couple of things about working with shapes. One is the basics. Remember when we're talking about PowerPoint, we're talking about precision and efficiency. So if I was going to create a diagram with shapes, then, if I draw every shape, then they're not going to be precise. I'm going to do a ton more work, right? So if you're going to do it, go about it using the tools that are available. If I was going to draw something with shapes, create one shape, size it, format it, add content. If you know what's in your diagram, add the shape that has the most content first so that you can size your text properly and format your text properly. Then copy it or duplicate it. Control-D is a shortcut to duplicate. And once you have that, then you can use, and please do, just the nudging stuff. Move away from the arrow keys. Move away from the arrow keys. Don't nudge. Unless, there are situations where nudging is appropriate, but nudging is not precise, and it's a lot more work. Alignment tools work precisely. Distribute tools to distribute objects, right? So for example, if I align everything to the top there, I've got too many shapes here. Distribute horizontally so they're going to overlap. Isn't that a lot less work than having moved each individual shape into position, right? So align and distribute tools, group objects to keep them together. Use the tools that are available there. And remember how much more flexible shapes have become as well. I can right-click or go up to the Drawing Tools Format tab and just start editing points on any shape to create customized shapes, right? And artist I'm not, but just to give you the idea, right? So you can get more creative very quickly and easily, and when you edit shapes, your shapes still retain all of their shape-like properties, right? They are still Office Art drawing shapes. But my very favorite new thing for shapes, and this is one of my very favorite PowerPoint features, it is available in PowerPoint 2010 and PowerPoint for Mac 2011. In PowerPoint 2010, it's not in the UI. It's not in the ribbon anywhere, but I'm going to show you where to get it, and that is the custom shape actions, known as combined shapes too. So if I just insert two shapes, like let's say an oval and a rectangle here, and maybe I'm going to set them up, align them however I might want to do that. I can then take a look at my quick access toolbar here. I can use Shape Union to turn them into one shape, and I'll undo that. I can use Shape Combine to turn them into one shape, removing the shared portion, right? Cut that out. I can use Shape Intersect to only keep the overlapping portion. That's kind of cool. Or I can use Shape Subtract. It depends on the order that I select it. So if I select the rectangle first, Shape Subtract subtracts the oval from the rectangle. If I select the oval first, Shape Subtract subtracts the rectangle from the oval. Okay, so where do you get this little marvel? If you've worked with Visio for, you see these are probably pretty familiar, this sort of combined shape actions. But right-click anywhere on the ribbon or the Quick Access toolbar for a shortcut to customize the Quick Access toolbar. You could put it on the ribbon as well in 2010. If you go to under Customize, you're going to go to Commands Not in the Ribbon. There's two different ways to get this. I'll show you the one that I like. What you just saw on my Quick Access toolbar is the Combine Shapes menu. That gives you all the features. If you only want one of them, or a couple, or you want them to be separate, you have Shape Combine, Intercept, Subtract, and Union as separate features. In PowerPoint for Mac 2011, you're going to find this option only on the right click, and it's going to be under a submenu under Merge Shapes, if I remember correctly. And when we go into Q&A, I will make a note to double check that. Folks, let's see. Oops, we are. I didn't do that on purpose. I did not do that on purpose. Just got into our window, so if you just saw a little flash of PowerPoint for Mac, that was not on purpose, but I will check that for you guys in just a couple minutes. Okay, so lots more I could talk to you about shapes if we had a lot more time, but we've got, oh gosh, less than 5 minutes apiece to talk about multimedia and animation, so I want to talk about just a few things for each of those. And so let's go ahead and insert a title and content slide. We're going to talk about media. So one of the biggest things that was news, right, for PowerPoint 2010 and 2011 is, thank goodness, it's about darn time we now can embed video. Right? No more packaging stuff, no more making sure that your media is in the same folder as your presentation and having to send a whole bunch of files when you want the client to review your presentation. Not worrying about any of that because your media can be embedded. Well, that's fantastic. And there's also some really cool tools for editing and working with your media video in particular, and some great tools for managing them. But it also does create complications. Keep in mind, you still want your presentations to remain a manageable size. You want playback of the entire presentation, not just your media, to be seamless. Run that presentation, take a look at what that file size is, run that presentation, dry run it before giving it to someone. Make sure the performance is good. Don't let that file get so big and heavy that your performance is going to suffer as a result. Well, you do have tools, particularly in PowerPoint 2010, to manage that size. But one thing about when I keep talking about PowerPoint 2010 versus PowerPoint 2011, one really important thing for cross-platform compatibility on both versions, you've got much wider support as well for different video and audio codecs. So for example, and I know this is a big one, PowerPoint 2010 users, yes, you can embed QuickTime videos. Do you need to have QuickTime installed? You may need the codec. So if you try to embed any type of video or audio and you get a note that you don't have the right codec or that it can't be supported, you may need to download and install them. Right, so for example, PowerPoint for Mac users want to use Windows Media, you need the Flip for Mac extension tools that you can get from either the Microsoft or the Apple website for free. And those are extensions for QuickTime that support Windows Media. On the other hand, you're going to need QuickTime extensions if you want to be able to use QuickTime on Windows. So you may need additional codecs. Also, if you are in a number of European and other countries outside of the U.S., a number of EU countries in particular where Windows is not allowed to be sold with Windows Media Player installed, you may try to insert any media and get an error. If Windows Media Player is not installed, you don't have your basic codecs or a number of them. But it is a free download from the Microsoft Download Center, so that's all you need to do is download and install the Media Player to get your default codecs, and then go from there. Okay, so if we have a video inserted, let's use this Windows sample video. And we have a video. A couple things to just point out. We don't have time to look at everything, but one of my favorite features here is this poster frame feature. What's cool about this poster frame feature is I don't have to have this ugly black rectangle on my slide, and especially if I need to print this presentation, it's not very nice. I can take a still from any point in the video, current frame, or I can select a picture from my files and use that as a poster frame. So basically use that as what you see in the space of the video in that fill instead of black space. So it helps to tell your story better. It really helps you fill out the slide. Also makes it easier for printing. So I can just set the current frame, and that is now my set poster frame. And see, it confirms for me that that's been set. Okay. And you have a lot more formatting. Well, you might remember in earlier versions that you had picture styles, so it might have looked rather similar, right? I could do something like that. But what's cool about this with video styles is that those styles are retained while the video plays, right? I'm just using the preview here. You'd see the same thing in It's not going to go back to just a plain rectangle or come out of that formatting, so that formatting is retained. In PowerPoint 2010, you have the ability to edit videos, such as with trim and fades. You don't have that in PowerPoint for Mac 2011, but Mac users, you don't need it because you've got free tools like trim in the free QuickTime Player. And if videos that you get, if you're sharing presentations with 2010 users, it's all supported, so you're still going to see the video the way that it was intended to be. So a lot of cool tools here. Bookmarks, you can add a bookmark at any point to jump to that point in the video or to use it with a tool that we're going to talk about in just a second with animations. And I might just have to talk about animations. I'm about to run out of time. What I want to show you in particular about multimedia is, keep in mind, if you go to the File Info, and these tools are exclusive to PowerPoint 2010, depending on what type of media you have in your file, and you're only going to see it if there's applicable media, you have the option to compress media. You may also see optimize media as an option. If it's non-Windows media, you'll see optimize, which is for QuickTime. That's going to convert your non-Windows media to Windows media formats. Careful, you can undo these actions, but careful, it's a good idea to save a backup in case you don't undo it soon enough. Just careful because that can affect quality. Sometimes it's great and works well, sometimes it doesn't. But optimized media is going to convert to Windows media format. Compressed media can often save you time. Depending on what the compression results would be, the size results, compress may automatically remove trim portions of the video, so keep that in mind. But again, when you trim a video, you're not trimming your video file, you're trimming the embedded copy in your presentation. But compressed media can help you keep your presentations from getting way too huge. And it runs in the background so you can keep working while it's doing its thing. Optimized media can help you depending on who you need to share with. Good thing to keep in mind. Okay. So if you have more questions about multimedia, please do use it. The last thing I want to mention, really, this is a really important thing. If you go to Insert Video on the ribbon, you've got this Insert Video from website. I get questions about this a lot, so I just want to make sure to share this. It's an incredibly cool tool, right? So that it allows you to play a video that you've posted online directly within your presentation. You don't have to hyperlink out to it on the web. You do need to have that internet connection because it's still there, right? But all you need is the embed code. Really easy to get. There's a built-in help topic on how to do that. But the most important thing to remember is that just because you can get the embed code from a video that's online does not convey rights to use it. Please don't put videos in your PowerPoint presentation or any media for that matter that you don't have the rights to, particularly if you're using them for commercial purposes. Just because someone makes the embed code available on their video does not mean that you've got the rights to use it for your business. So make sure that you're only using your own videos there. Since you have, right, you have the power, make sure you don't use it in a way that's going to get you in trouble. Okay, that said, very, very briefly, transitions, we're not going to look at them, but hey, if you haven't looked at the new 3D transitions, really cool dynamic content transitions in 2010 and 2011, they're very cool. They're very, very cool. There's some really wonderful, beautiful transitions to take a look at. But that also brings fact and animation, in fact, while animations you may not see many names that look new, you're going to see much more realistic animation effects in a lot of cases, just improved quality in the animation effects in 2010 and 2011. But what's really important in talking about all of that, remember that transitions and animations, if they're not used wisely, do not help your message. They detract from it. So in general, using them simply, consistently is the most important thing, and sparingly, right, to make your presentation look more polished. It's great. The other way, though, to use transitions and animations in particular, is that you can actually use animations to choreograph your slides to help tell a story. Much, much more powerful tool. If you haven't seen it, I want to mention one of the sample templates that is provided in particular. In 2010 and 2011 have it, 5 rules template. Now the 5 rules template, I will tell you, I always recommend it cautiously. It is not an example of all the things of creating good presentations that we've been talking about. It doesn't use themes, it doesn't use masters and layouts correctly. It's not about that. It's not a typical or traditional presentation. Use 5 rules as a reference. It is one of the most brilliant examples I've ever seen of using animation to tell a story and choreograph. It's very, very cool. So good example of what I'm talking about there. Just very quickly, 2 exclusive PowerPoint 2010 features to talk about. You saw the video bookmarks feature that we were talking about before, and you have them in audio as well. They work along with animation triggers. You can trigger an animation to start at a point in your media playback, which means you can do things like add captions to your video. Very cool. If you have my book, you'll find that in detail on it in Chapter 16. If you don't, you need resources or information on the feature, let me know. And the other thing is exclusive to 2010 is Animation Painter. Just like Format Painter for text and graphics, you have Animation Painter now to copy a set of custom animation from one object to another or onto multiple objects. So huge cool time saver there for those who use a lot of animation. All right. All right, trying to finish that quickly. Liz kind of breathless, and so if I went too fast for you guys on any of those things, please feel free to ask questions. I think that we're going to not necessarily take the time to review what we've just talked about, but just a quick review on your screen right now of the areas that we touched on today. And what I'm going to do right now actually is put up some additional resources on screen. Some general additional resources here, including my blog where you can go to ask me questions later, arouet.net, arouet.net. But I think that I should turn things back over to Yaz and see what we've got in your Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Folks, if you do have questions for Stephanie and what she's been talking to you about and showing you, please send those into the group chat while we still have her with us so she can answer them. We've only gotten a couple here, and we'll start with, do the themes work with Visio?
Okay, so themes in Visio are totally different. They're totally separate. So you will see themes in Visio, and you'll see them. Some of them look very similar to some of the themes in the core Office programs in Word, PowerPoint, Excel. They are not the same themes. Totally, totally separate, totally unrelated. But you can, in fact, create your own customize the Visio themes. So just a separate feature.
All right, and one other question, and you may have already answered this, but it came in quite a few times, so maybe folks just need that extra reassurance that they can't do it. But the question is, will I still be able to present a PowerPoint that I created in 2010 to display correctly in 2007?
Okay, so if you're presenting, right, if you're sharing content, if you're presenting it in an earlier version, keep a couple of things in mind. So if you created a presentation in 2010 or Mac 2011, certain things are not backward compatible. If 2007 needs Service Pack 2 in order to run embedded video, it will not run it with effects, with the new effects, but it will still run it. So certain new features are not going to be backward compatible. Some of your transitions, the new transitions, for example, will default to transitions that were available. So if they're new features, you're not necessarily going to see them. If you're using a lot of new features, it's a good idea to do a test run as well. And it's worth mentioning, in fact, also that if you were going to use the really super cool broadcast slideshow feature from PowerPoint 2010 or 2011 to broadcast your presentation over the web, that broadcast viewers are going to be looking at the presentation in PowerPoint web app, which has some limitations there as well. It does not play back media and doesn't support a number of the new transitions animations and such. So keep that in mind depending on where you're going to present.
Perfect. And that, Stephanie, it looks like all the questions that have come in today. Would you like to leave our audience with any additional information before we close?
The one thing that I would, absolutely. I would just like to say that if you also, even if you don't want to send a question, if you would like additional links, go to my blog, arouet.net, some point over the weekend or the latest Monday. I will get a follow-up post added with all of the links, any links that I talked about during the session, the the Office for Mac 2011 product guides, the Smarter Customization article, any of that information you can find there as well, and you'll have that post available by Monday the latest. So other than that, I just want to say thank you to everyone for taking the time to be here. And I had fun. I hope you did. And I hope that I will see you for the next session on November 18th, which is going to be all about Excel. And we'll talk an awful lot about Excel charts, which we just breezed right over today.